Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to week 12 literature assignment. Now, this week it's going to be a little bit different, and I've decided to do the explanation in person to elaborate more on the assignment and the submission for this week. Now, this week we will focus on literature skills in writing. Here, what you're going to need for this week is your fantasy story that you've created earlier. I think like 10 days, 2 weeks ago, you created your fantasy stories and they were checked and discussed on Zoom meetings, on Google Classroom. So you're going to refer and use the stories that you have created in order to answer a set of questions. Now together, I'm going to read with you the instructions, and of course, I'll elaborate more throughout my reading. In this week's literature assignment folder, as usual, you will find an attached worksheet covering a set of questions for you to answer based on your fantasy stories you created earlier. The purpose of this whole task is to initiate a discussion-based lesson with the students. This week, we want you to take control of the Zoom lessons. We want you to be sharing your stories, answering the questions, answering elements of a fantasy story that you've included in your writings with the class. So, what's new for this week is the following. Once you refer to your fantasy stories and check the questions that I'm going to introduce later, okay, if you show up well prepared to discuss the questions with the class about your fantasy stories on the 16th of June, which is a week from today, that's next Tuesday, then no need for you to submit the answered worksheet in the assignment folder. So if you join the Zoom meeting next Tuesday and you simply prepare without answering the worksheet, but you prepare the questions that are in the worksheet based on your fantasy writing, no need for you to submit the assignment into the folder. But if you decide not to show up or you couldn't join the Zoom meeting next Tuesday, you are asked to answer the worksheet and submit the worksheet into the assignment folder on the 16th of June. So guys, we just want you to know that the whole purpose of this assignment is we want you on Zoom. We want to create this live discussion board. We want you to be discussing, sharing your stories together, pointing out elements of a fantasy story based on what you have created, based on what you have written. So for all those who are going to join next week's Zoom meeting on Tuesday the 16th, you're going to share your stories with us by, of course, answering some questions from the worksheet. Then no need for you to answer the worksheet and submit it. Whereas the others, or those who are not going to join the meeting, are expected to answer the worksheet and submit it into the assignment folder. Now here I'm going to share with you the assignment, the worksheet. Here you go. Answer the following story elements questions based on your previous fantasy writing piece. What new world have you created? Here we're focusing, the first three questions, we're focusing on the setting of your fantasy writing. So, what new world have you created? Where and when does your story take place? Question number 2, what techniques have you used to describe the setting of your story? Number 3, how does your new world or system portray the genre fantasy? Moving to the characters section, where you need to discuss the characters you've created in your stories. You're going to discuss with the class what advanced abilities or superpowers have you given your characters in your stories? How well does your character show those abilities, the use of those abilities in whether serving good or evil? You need to explain. Does the character in your story, it could be one character, it could be more than a character, two or more. But mostly, I believe you guys you focused on one main character in your stories. So, does the character in your story change or develop throughout the story? And here, please, let's try to avoid yes or no questions. Give me some explanation. Going to the plot of your fantasy stories, the events. Have you ended your story with a cliffhanger? And here you can also elaborate more on what questions have you exactly kept your readers wondering about. Question 2, what techniques have you used to make your story seem realistic? So we all know that a fantasy story is based on events that cannot happen in real life, but how or what techniques have you used in your story to make it seem a little bit realistic? A question based on the theme. Is there a message behind the story you wrote? Explain. Maybe it's not a message, but it focuses on a certain theme. So try to tell me what's the theme of the story and explain. Point of view, from which point of view is your story told? So these are the questions. So as I said earlier, based on your fantasy writing, you're going to answer the following questions. So good luck in this week's task and see you guys.